How often have we unknowingly harmed or stepped on a living creature? We should do our best to prevent this from happening again. An ancient, great poet once wrote, "In love of the mice, we often leave them some rice. In pitying the moth, we will not light the lamp." What a kind and compassionate statement. End quote. The above words are for our understanding, for modern society would strongly disagree with them. How can we love mice? Mice are harmful to human beings. Consequently, they are often exterminated. People do not understand about the 6 realms of reincarnation. When we kill mice, they will seek revenge. This cycle of revenge will continue, growing worse each time. Does killing them really solve anything? Are there not any other solutions to the problems? There is no such thing as walking away scot-free from a murder. No such thing as not paying our debts. By truly understanding the reality that the law of cause and effect connects the past, present, and future, we would not do anything bad. For if we do, it will come back to us. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Once we understand this principle, then we would never again harm any living beings. Never again make an enemy of them. Never again owe debts to anyone. This is how our minds will be at peace in this lifetime. Only true sincerity, purity, and compassion in this world can seemingly solve the unsurmountable problems of human beings. From the book. There are infinite types of goodness. I cannot mention them all. As long as we can expand on the 10 previous categories, we can make them into a multitude of good deeds and virtues. End quote. The first lesson, learning to create destiny, talks about the law of cause and effect. The second lesson, ways to reform, is built on understanding the law of cause and effect. The third lesson, the ways to cultivate goodness, is the primary lesson, that of cultivating and accumulating good deeds. It is built on the basis of feeling regret and reforming our faults. The fourth lesson, the benefits of the virtue of humility, is the conclusion for the book. Humility enables us to preserve our good rewards. Without it, we will lose what we are trying to accumulate, and all of our efforts will be in vain. We need to rely on humility, for it enables us to preserve our goodness. Therefore, the Diamond Sutra explains that we should use endurance to preserve what we have accumulated from our practice of giving, which is accomplishing good deeds. If we were unable to endure, then no matter how much we cultivated and accumulated, all would be lost. According to the Confucian teachings, the way to retain what we have cultivated is to practice the virtue of humility. From the book. In I Ching, the Book of Changes, the combination for humility stated that the law of heaven takes from the arrogant and benefits the humble. The law of earth will bring flowing water from areas that are full to those that are lower as it passes by. The law of spirits will bring harm to those who are arrogant and good fortune to those who are modest. Even the laws of people despise the arrogant and like the modest. End quote. A good example to help us understand the law of heaven is the waxing and waning of the moon. After the moon is full, it begins to wane. Before the moon again becomes full, it becomes brighter and brighter each day. This gradual increase is the virtue of humility. From this, we can understand natural law and the will of heaven. The law of earth is a natural law. Water will move from areas that are filled to lower areas. When some spirits see that we have become successful, they become jealous and will try to cause problems for us. When we are destitute, they will feel sorry for us and will try to help. People are the same way. The laws of people prefer those who are modest to those who are arrogant. During the Qing dynasty, Guo Fanzheng held the highest post as governor of 4 provinces in China. He was almost a small emperor. Being highly educated, he knew that he had already advanced very high and that this was not good. So he named his room Study Seeking Imperfection to make known his aspiration. Most people seek perfection, but Mr. Zheng sought moderation. He sought to lack a little, to not have too much. He believed that as one's position was elevated, one should be more modest. Thus, he was able to maintain what he accumulated. Even to the present time, his descendants are still very prosperous due to his accumulated merits, virtuous conduct, and the following of the teachings by his descendants. The prosperity of the family was prolonged. From the book. In I Ching, the Book of Changes, only the humility combination contains all good and no bad outcomes. The Book of History explains that arrogance invites disaster and humility gains benefit. End quote. In I Ching, the Book of Changes, there are 64 combinations. Every one of the explanations or predictions has the possibility of good fortune and misfortune. Only the humility combination, also called high mountain under the ground, has no possibility for misfortune. Thus, the higher we are, the more modest we need to be. From the book. I often went to take the examinations accompanied by others. And every time I would meet scholars who were very poor, I noticed that before they succeeded in passing the examinations and became prosperous, their faces radiated such humility that I could almost hold it in my hands. End quote. Based on the observation of his own life, Mr. Liao found what was written in I Ching and the Book of History to be logical and applicable in our daily lives. At every imperial examination that he attended, the students who passed were those who were the most modest. From this, he could accurately predict who would pass the current examination. From the text. Several years ago, 10 of us from the village went to take the preliminary imperial examination. Jing Yuding was the youngest and extremely humble. I told one of the applicants, Jin Po Fei, that this young man would definitely pass the examinations this year. Jin Po Fei asked how I could tell. I told him that only those who are humble receive good fortune. My friend, look at the 10 of us. Is there anyone as honest, generous, and never tries to come in first as Jing Yu? Do you see anyone as respectful, tolerant, careful, and humble as Jing Yu? Do you see anyone like Jing Yu who, when insulted, does not talk back, or when slandered, does not argue? Any person who can achieve such a level of humility will receive protection from the earth, spirits, and heavens. There is no reason he will not become prosperous. Sure enough, when the test results came out, Jing Yu Ding passed. End quote. One year, Mr. Liao Fan went with several other people to take the examinations. Based on his observations of everyone, he commented to one of his companions that Jing Yu Ding, who was the most modest, would pass despite his young age. His companion, Jing Po Fei, asked how he could tell. Mr. Liao Fan said that only those who are modest will receive good fortune. He asked Mr. Fei to consider the 10 traveling companions. Was anyone else as loyal, honest, kind, sincere, and agreeable as Jing Yu? He explained that Jing Yu was respectful and modest, a rare person who remained undisturbed and tolerant even when others humiliated or offended him. Those with great tolerance possess tremendous good fortune. As predicted, Jing Yu passed the examination. From the book. One year in Beijing, I was staying with my childhood friend, Kai Feng. I noticed that he always carried himself in a humble way, with a kind and accommodating appearance. He was not a bit arrogant, which was an immense change from his childhood ways. Kaija had a friend named Yan Li, who was straightforward and honest. Ji Yan often scolded him for his mistakes, but Kaija always accepted the accusations calmly without talking back. End quote. This refers to the year when Mr. Liao Fan was in the capital city with a friend named Kai Feng. Mr. Liao Fan noticed that Mr. Feng had changed greatly since his younger years. After only a few years, he had become a completely different person. Mr. Li was a good friend of Mr. Feng. When he saw any faults in Mr. Feng, he would immediately criticize him right then and there. It did not matter to Mr. Feng whether or not Mr. Li was correct in criticizing him. He would accept all criticism from others. There is a saying, if we were at fault, we need to correct it. If we were not, we need to correct mistakes if we have made any and guard against them if we have not. We do not resent others if they have wronged us for a non-existent fault. It is good to be admonished. Actually, only those who reproach us genuinely care and look after us. We would reproach our children if they made mistakes. Why would we not admonish those of our neighbors? Therefore, although it may be an unjust accusation, still it rose out of a heart of loving kindness. Thus, we need to accept criticism willingly, to be grateful for the teaching. From the text, I told him, just as there are signs that tell of coming good fortune or misfortune, we can see that prosperity or disaster come to those who have cultivated the cause for it. Heaven will help those whose hearts are humble. You, my friend, will definitely pass the imperial examination this year. Later, he indeed passed the examination. End quote. Mr. Liao told him that good fortune and misfortune could be predicted. Mr. Liao had learned well. He had mastered the art of prediction from Mr. Kong. But knowing how to predict a person's fortune or misfortune is still secondary. When we end our erroneous ways and accumulate merits and virtues, we rewrite our own destiny. Thus, Mr. Feng passed the examination that year as Mr. Liao had predicted. From the book. There was a young man from Shandong province named Yufeng Zhao who passed the preliminary level of the imperial examinations before he was even 20. Unfortunately, try as he might, he could not pass the succeeding examinations. When his father was moved to Jiashan to accept another post in the government, Yufeng went with him and came to greatly admire a well-known scholar in that village named Ming Wu Chen. Yufeng brought his essays to this man. He had no idea that Mr. Chen would pick up his calligraphy brush and blot out his entire essay. Not only was Yufeng not angry, he sincerely accepted all Mr. Chen's corrections and immediately made the recommended changes. The following year, Yu Feng passed the imperial examination. End quote. When Zhou's father was working as an official in Jiashan County, he greatly admired a scholar named Ming Wu Qian. After Yu Feng took his own work to Mr. Qian to ask for his advice, Mr. Qian made substantial changes to his essay. Usually, when this happens to us, we feel offended and feel terrible when this happens to us. Even if our work was not that good, we would still feel it did not deserve that many corrections. Surprisingly, not only was Yu Feng not angry, he was extremely grateful and modest, for he sincerely wanted to learn from Mr. Qian. Because of his sincerity, humility, respect, and diligence, he made significant improvement and passed the imperial examination the following year. From the text. One year, I went to the capital to pay my respects to the emperor. I met a scholar named Jian Xia, who had all the qualities of a great man without a trace of arrogance. I felt the intense aura of his virtue and humility all about him. When I returned home, I told my friend, when heaven wants a person to prosper, it will first bestow him with wisdom. Such wisdom can make a pompous person honest and well-disciplined. Jian Xia is gentle, kind, and good. Surely heaven will now make him prosperous. Sure enough, when the test results came out, Jian Xia had passed the examination. End quote. It was in that year, when he went to have an audience with the emperor, that Mr. Liao Fan met Mr. Jian Xia. He was stunned by how humble and respectful Mr. Xia was towards others. The important message in this account is that before heaven gives us good fortune, it first gives us wisdom. If we do not have wisdom, then regardless of our cultivation, we will be unable to accumulate good fortune. There is real and false good fortune, as well as half and full, that we do not know about. If we do not understand this, we will commit serious offenses, all the while believing that our causes are commendable and meritorious. The most important point is to learn and understand what the field of merit is, so that we will know how to properly accumulate good fortune. Once we uncover our wisdom, we will naturally restrain ourselves as we become calm and dignified, kind and modest, respectful and gentle. By possessing these characteristics, Mr. Xia passed the examination. From the book. There was a scholar named Wei Yanzhang from Jiangyin who was very learned and wrote good essays. He was also very well known among scholars. One year, while taking his examination in Nanjing, he stayed at a temple. When the test results were posted, he found that he had not passed. He became furious and loudly accused the examiner of being blind for not recognizing his obvious talents. At that time, a Taoist monk stood by smiling, and Wei Yan immediately directed his anger towards him. The monk said, "The essay must not be very good." Wei Yan got even angrier and demanded how he knew it was not good when he had not even read it. The Taoist replied that he often heard people say that the most important element in writing good essays was a peaceful heart and harmonious disposition. Wei Yan's loud and angry accusations clearly showed that his mind was not at peace and his disposition was violent. How could he possibly write good essays? Wei Yan acceded to the Taoist's words and in turn asked him for his advice. End quote. The Taoist explained that he had heard that good writing only comes from a peaceful and harmonious heart. Wei Yan's bad temper and arrogance could not possibly help him to write a good essay. Fortunately, as a scholar, Wei Yan recognized this logic and realized that the Taoist was right. Thus, he had no choice but to concede. After realizing his faults, he asked the old Taoist for his advice. From this, we can see that Wei Yan was able to change once he realized that he was at fault. This is true learning, true practice. From the book. The Taoist said that whether or not one passes depends on destiny. If someone is not destined to pass, then no matter how good the paper is, he or she will still fail. End quote. This is truly understanding that destiny, that the law of cause and effect is perfectly accurate. Passing or not passing the examination has little to do with the quality of the paper, but with destiny. It is the same with fame and prestige. Whether we become wealthy or not depends on our destiny. It has nothing to do with how we plan, with how we manage our lives. The question is, does our destiny hold fame and prestige? When someone is destined to be wealthy, it does not depend whether they are knowledgeable. They do not even have to know how to obtain wealth. They just receive the amount of money they are destined, they are supposed to receive. If we are not destined to become wealthy, then regardless of how much we plot, how much we scheme, we will fail. Today, people do not know about or believe in destiny. They think that they can commit all kinds of offenses and still obtain good results, good fortune. Where is the logic in that? Why is it that in ancient times most people would see the results of their offenses quickly, while today we do not seem to suffer from them? Because too many people are committing too many offenses. There are too many people to receive their retribution one by one. The debts will be collected at one time. Our education, abilities, good fortune, long lives, a peaceful death, everything depends on destiny. Creating destiny is the most intelligent, the wisest thing we can do. Otherwise, if we fail to achieve this and seek what we were not meant to have, then all our time and efforts will be wasted. This would be truly sad. From the text. The Taoist concluded that Wei Yan would have to make a few changes in himself. Wei Yan asked how he could change destiny. The Taoist further explained that although the power to form our destiny lies in the heavens, the right to change it lies within us. As long as we are willing to do good deeds and to extensively cultivate hidden virtues, we will receive what we seek. End quote. If he wanted to change his destiny, he had to do just as Master Yuan Gu had taught him. Mr. Liao Fan knew that he alone could change his destiny. It is a constant that is completely extrapolated from mathematical calculations. If we break the habit of committing offenses to instead commit to perform good deeds, to accumulate merits, then we create the variables to rewrite our destinies. But if we do not correct our erroneous ways, then we will remain bound by our destiny throughout our lives. From the book. Wei Yan said that he was only a poor scholar and questioned his ability to do good deeds. The Taoist explained that practicing good deeds and accumulating hidden virtues all stem from the heart. As long as we constantly have the intent to practice goodness and accumulate virtues, our merits will be infinite and boundless. He used the example of the virtue of humility. It does not cost anything. Wei Yan should reflect within himself instead of berating the examiner for being unfair. End quote. Wei Yan said that he was a poor man. What could he do to accumulate merits? The Taoist replied that money was not necessary. More often than not, those who are poor are able to accumulate more merit than those who are wealthy. The Taoist used Wei Yan's behavior as an example, saying that his behavior just then had been very arrogant. If he could only be a little more modest, then he would be virtuous and good. To do so does not cost anything. When he did not pass the examination, he should reflect and reform within. How could he blame the examination official? It is obvious that good or bad, good fortune or misfortune, all lies in an instant of thought. From the book. Wei Yan listened to the Taoist monk, and from then on suppressed his arrogant ways. Every day he put forth additional effort to do more good deeds and accumulate more merits. 3 years later, one night as he slept, he dreamt that he had entered a very tall house and saw a book that contained many names. He also saw many blank lines. He asked the person next to him what it was. The person replied that the book contained all the names of the applicants who passed the examination that year. When Wei Yan asked why there were so many blank lines, he answered that the spirits of the underworld check on the applicants every 3 years. Only the names of those who practice good deeds and are without faults are listed. The blank lines used to bear the names of those who were supposed to pass the examination, but due to their recent offenses, their names had been removed. Then the person pointed to a line and said that for the past 3 years, Wei Yan had been very careful and had exerted such self-control that he had not made any mistakes. Perhaps his name would fill the blank. The person hoped that he would cherish his opportunity and take care not to make any mistakes. Indeed, Wei Yan passed the examination that year and placed 105th. End quote. Those who can believe in these matters are very fortunate. The spirits of heaven and earth are closely linked with our world in every gesture, word, and smile. This is the truth and not superstition. When Mr. Jingzhou Zhu was still alive and teacher was a Buddhist novice, Mr. Zhu told him many experiences, many stories that he had experienced firsthand. No one dies by accident, not even in a war. Life and death is destined. How we will die is recorded in the underworld. No one dies unjustly. Although we live in a high-tech environment and know much of science, we cannot escape the control of the ruler of the underworld when that is our destiny. This is the truth. It is time for us to be awakened. We would do well to believe what the sages have taught us. From the book. From the previous examples, we know that spirits and heavenly beings are 3 feet above our heads. To be able to obtain good fortune and to prevent misfortune depends on ourselves. As long as we have good intentions, refrain from wrongdoings, do not offend the beings and spirits of heaven and earth, are tolerant and not arrogant, then the beings and spirits of heaven and earth will constantly have compassion for us. Only then will we have a foundation for future prosperity. End quote. There are beings and spirits of heaven and earth who are watching us at all times. We alone are responsible for every good or bad deed we perform, every good or bad deed, every good or bad result that happens to us. Thus, we need to be awakened in every thought. Buddha Shakyamuni taught us to be awakened, not deluded, proper instead of deviated, pure instead of polluted. He also taught us to sever all attachments and to practice giving. We need to be extremely careful in our every thought, word, and deed, and to accord with the teachings and codes of behavior. Practicing Buddhism is to set a good example for all sentient beings, to perfectly have a kind heart, do kind deeds, say kind words, and be a decent person is to be a Buddha, to be a Bodhisattva. Since we choose the Pure Land method, we need to incorporate the teachings from the Infinite Life Sutra into our thinking, viewpoints, and behavior. There truly is no difference between Buddha Amitabha and us. This is practicing the true teaching of the Buddhas. We mold ourselves by upholding within, according with the mind, vow, understanding, and conduct of Buddha Amitabha. Liao Fan's 4 lessons can be used as an invaluable aid in our learning. We can use Liao Fan and the Infinite Life Sutra for abiding by the precepts and practicing Buddha name chanting. To do so, we are practicing both the primary and secondary methods. This will assure us of being born into the Pure Land, to never again regress until we become Buddhas. It is to wholeheartedly be a Buddha, to not settle for anything less. From the text, those who are filled with conceit are doubtless not destined to be great. Even if they do prosper, they will not be able to enjoy their good fortune for long. End quote. Look around and see all the wealthy people who live in the East and the West. Many of them are not genuinely happy. They really do not know how to use their wealth. Some even live in hiding because this is the only way they feel safe. There is no joy in possessing such wealth. There is only suffering. A human being should truly live a happy life. This is prosperity and happiness. From the text, intelligent people would definitely not make themselves small and narrow-minded and refuse the good fortune they are entitled to. Besides, those who are humble always increase their opportunities to learn. In this way, the kind deeds that humble people can accomplish are boundless. For those who wish to cultivate and improve upon their virtues, they especially cannot do without the virtue of humility. End quote. It is essential for us to learn modesty, for it is the key to our cultivating and improving our virtue. We need to sincerely learn that others are better than we are, that they excel in what they do. Even if others cannot see how we really are, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can see. Thus, modesty must come from deep within us. It must be without the slightest pretension. We are no better than other people. If others accumulate more merits, then they are above me. If others commit offenses more than I do, they are also above me. Only by doing so are we completely modest. This is putting the teaching of humility into practice. I am the only student. Everyone else is my benevolent teacher. From the book. The ancients said that those who have their hearts set on attaining success and fame will surely attain success and fame. Those who have their hearts set on attaining wealth and position will surely attain wealth and position. A person who has great and far-reaching goals is like a tree with roots. A person who has set down great and far-reaching goals must be humble in every thought and try to relieve others' burdens, even if the occurrence is as insignificant as a speck of dust. If we can reach this level of humility, we will naturally touch the hearts of heaven and earth. Furthermore, I am the creator of my own prosperity. Look at the applicants who sought fame and wealth. In the beginning, they were not sincere. It was only a passing notion. When they wanted something, they sought it. When their interest waned, they stopped seeking it. Mencius once said to Emperor Xuan of Qi, if you can expand from the heart which seeks personal happiness to that of sharing happiness with all your subjects and make them just as happy as you are, then surely the nation is bound to prosper. This is also true for myself in seeking to pass the imperial examination. I and I alone can seek and thus change my destiny. Mr. Liao Fan initially learned that whatever we seek, we can attain. The key is sincerity. With a heart of sincerity, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will respond to our every plea. He then learned that we do not even have to voice our plea, for they know our every thought the instant we give rise to it. He sought an imperial appointment and a son. He attained both. But he did not seek, did not ask for a longer life. He was supposed to die at the age of 53 on August the 14th between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. But he lived to over 70. We do not seek on the outside through formalities. We seek from within. All of us here seek peace, prosperity, and happiness, as do most people. In writing this book for his sons, Mr. Liao showed them, and showed us as well, how we can change what is destined to happen, what is supposed to happen. Nothing happens without a reason. The law of cause and effect says that every effect, every thought, word, and deed has a result. It may mature in our next lifetime, in 100 lifetimes, in 100,000 lifetimes, but be assured it will occur. What is destined to happen in our life is because of what we did in innumerable past lifetimes. Most beings do not understand this. We are unbelievably fortunate because we are able to learn, and hopefully we are able to truly understand. If we do, we will honestly look at ourselves, find all of our faults and correct them. We will do all that is good and nothing that is bad. Thus, we will do all that we can to benefit others and nothing that benefits solely ourselves. We will cease all thoughts of selfishness, of me and mine. As we start to change initially, we will change through behavior. When we become wiser, we will change through behavior, through understanding from the heart. When we are able to do so, the results will be inconceivable. For just one sincere thought of helping all others can generate infinite goodness, infinite virtue. And this will be the way that we can change our destiny to create infinite goodness, so much so that it will change what is supposed to happen in this lifetime. We can then attain whatever we seek. Children, prestige, being born into the heavens, being born into the Western Pure Land, becoming a bodhisattva, and helping all sentient beings becoming a Buddha in this lifetime. Amitabha. Thank you.